Suggs is always one of the greatest challenges that I face every year, and it's amazing in his 14th NFL season that he's still doing it as well as he did when he was in his 6th or 7th season. So there's always some good battles between myself and Suggs. And, I think he's one of the greats all time, not only for the Ravens but at his position.
At this point, does an unknown like Watt give you more trouble than a guy you've studied and played against for 10 years? Or no?
Well, you certainly have more anxiety, I would say, going into a game against a guy that is sort of unknown, like playing a rookie in his first game. Really don't know exactly what he's going to do and what are his strengths and weaknesses, whereas you go into a game against a guy that you've played 17 times or so, there's not a whole lot of unknowns on either side.
What is it about Suggs? What's the challenge that makes him so different?
I think it's the same thing that makes other defensive ends great. Big, strong, fast, smart, physical, savvy, quick, good use of his hands.
Joe, they've got you 4 snaps away from 10,000. How does that hit you?
I don't really think about it too much. People have asked me about it more as I've gotten closer. So I guess it's hard to quantify. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing to even think about.
Is there anything in your life that you've done or even come close to doing like 10,000 times other than playing football?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty of boring things that I do that, like maybe open car doors or something. But nothing as exciting as playing at 10,000 snaps. Let me tell you.
Joe,
Remember the most memorable of the 9,996?
There's memorable snaps for good and bad, but there's not one that really sticks out.
Are you thinking of Instant Painter at all?
Now I will that you said.
hey, the fact that when the Ravens send out their publicity material, point out Suggs has more sacks against the Browns than any team. And is that a reflection of him having good games against you or the opposite?
Well,
Just the number of games you played together.
the Browns have given up a lot of sacks since I've been here. I can't say I was responsible for all of them. I'm sure I've given up some sacks to Suggs in his career. It's just the nature of playing with a lot of quarterbacks that are young. They get sacked a lot.
This is Kaiser's the third rookie that they have faced in 5 years in a Browns game. So, case made.
You can go back and see how many sacks he had against those rookie quarterbacks. That's your homework assignment.
Joe, are there some of those snaps that may be more meaningful to you because you played with a torn ligament in your knee, or did you ever think about having to come out and didn't? Or can you run us through any of those kind of snap stories?
Yeah, the only time that I really questioned if I could still play was against Pittsburgh in 2012 or so when I tore my LCL and heard the pop and was in pain and had to really try to test it a little bit to see if I could continue to play. But other than that, it's just your garden variety pain and anguish that you go through in certain games and with certain injuries. But I think that's probably the one that sticks out the most in my head as far as ones that were close to not knowing if I would be able to play. Yeah, I don't really think about it too much. I'm sure when my career's over and it's all said and done, maybe I'll have more time to reflect back on those things. But right now, it's sort of a novelty thing that people talk to me about, and it's difficult for me to really think about it and kind of grasp.
Your teammates still seem, they are like Deshaun and then Joel yesterday said they're glad that they were a small part of it. Like, have they said that to you, that they're glad to be around when you're doing something that's kind of historic?
Nobody's really said anything to me about like that. And I think if they got too serious with me, I would probably try to make a joke to diffuse the tension in the room because I don't like talking about it too much. But it's cool if people think that.
John Harbaugh said yesterday when we talked to him on the conference call, he wishes you'd retire.
I take that as a great compliment.
His backhand. That
That was very nice of him.
Joe, do you feel like in some ways you kind of set the tone for other guys to have to stay out there and, just kind of be Iron Men in the same way they
Yeah. Well, I hope I can be a good example for my teammates, and I hope I can maybe inspire them to be better than they expect from even themselves in the face of difficulty or injury or difficult times, which from time to time you will face in the NFL. And it's easy to fold up the tent and pack in your stuff and go home when you're not having a winning season or when you're not having a great game and you're losing by a lot. But hopefully maybe a small inspiration for those guys that even though maybe it doesn't matter on the scoreboard or in the record sheet, every play really does matter in the NFL for somebody out there, because somebody's playing for their job, whether it be the offensive line or the other guys in the offense or the coaches, or it means something to somebody. And so if you can be out there to help your teammates, to do it for yourself, for your teammates, you should be out there.
Joe, they were really good last week defensively against Cincinnati. Is this just another case of another really good Ravens defense from what you saw?
Yeah, they're a good defense. I think that their front seven is really, really good. Maybe as good as we'll see all year. Obviously, we know how great Terrell Suggs is, Brandon Williams. You look at their linebacker core, they're really outstanding linebackers. They play well together. They play hard. They get turnovers. And they really stir the tea for everybody on that defense and really on that whole team. I mean, if they don't get 5 turnovers like they did in that first game, who knows what the score ends up, because once it gets lopsided, then that's really their game, because then they can start rushing the passer, start trying to get sacks, and turnovers beget more turnovers when you get into those situations. So a defense that can get turnovers the way they do is a darn good defense.
what did you see from the running game for you guys last week? You wants has said time and time again, he wants to run the football. Outside looking in, it didn't look like it was very effective Sunday. What did you see from your perspective? What do you need to do this Sunday against that front seven so you can run the ball?
Like anything in the run game, it's all about the details of it. Unlike the passing game, where all you need is 2 people to do a good job in the passing game, you need the quarterback to throw to the spot and the receiver to catch it. In the running game, everybody that's blocking has to get a plus on that play. You have to be on the right aiming point. You have to block the right guy with the right combination and the right footwork, or the play doesn't work. So the amount of coordination that it takes in the run game is a lot more challenging and it's a lot more difficult. So the details really are what wins and loses in the run game. And like I just said, last week for us, it was one guy just a little bit off on his aiming point on one thing, or maybe just took the wrong first step. And even though everyone else did a good job, when one person fails in the run game, it goes for 0 or 2 or 1 or 3. And then in a situation where we were playing from behind the whole game, it's hard to try to stick with it and get you those runs and get you those carries to wear a defense down. And then it turns into more of a passing game.
Kaiser said yesterday that he wanted to kind of sit down with you and get your notes on Suggs and the other Ravens you've faced. Has he been picking your brain that way?
Yeah, we meet almost every day during the week, talk about blitz pickups and different things about their defense, their check with me's in the run game, things like that. I'm not sure I could really tell him anything about Suggs that will help him, because if he doesn't get blocked, he's not going to get away from him. So I'm not going to tell him anything that's going to really help him there.
Is Suggs the guy you've blocked the most, you've matched up with the most in your career, you think?
It's half and half. He flips sides. He usually plays to the weak side. So half the time he'll be over the left tackle, half the time right tackle. And then the other half, he drops into coverage. So go figure.
You said your notebook is pretty thick. You've been keeping a notebook since you were little?
Yeah, I'm a big note taker. I take notes on everything. I laugh that even when we have NFL speakers that are talking about nothing and it's really boring, I take notes just to keep myself awake. And so it's just a habit I got into when I was a rookie, just taking really detailed notes, and I think it's helped me a lot because in the NFL you're playing the same guys over and over and over, and I can always refer back to what my notes were the previous time, and then I can look at what I did and how it worked and then make any adjustments that are needed.
And your impressions, Sean Coleman, obviously.
Yeah, I think he's made a lot of improvement from where he was as a rookie. I think he had a good game last week. Certainly there's room for him to grow, but I think he's definitely trending in the right direction, and I think we're really happy with what he's done so far.
He's another one of these guys, and it seems like this is a big part of the NFL now. Everyone talks about the quarterback, but tackles coming from spread offenses, it's a completely different game. And how you was saying that you tried to help him with some stuff. What you tried to work with him on?
Well, we try to work on everything, but I think, like you mentioned, his offense in college was basically a high school offense with no pro concepts from a technique standpoint. So when he came here, he was a blank slate, and we had to really just teach him basics for everything. But he's done a really good job. He's a very good learner. He's very bright, and it's very important to him. So when you have somebody that has that desire to get better, they can actually get better. And it's been fun working with him and teaching him the details in the run game and the pass game and just trying to rep it, because the offensive line, almost like no other position, is all about the number of repetitions that you get doing it the right way.
Is it crazy to think that 10 or 11 years ago, whenever you get in this league, that you would be working with kids that didn't know how to get into a three-point stance?
The game in college has changed just so immensely. It's pretty amazing. There's very few teams that still run pro-style offenses with pro concepts, and I think that's one of the big reasons why you've seen the difficulty drafting first-round offensive linemen, because you're basically just drafting off of potential. You really have no idea how well they can handle pro-style techniques, and you're just trying to assume how they're going to transition, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of repetitions to be able to do something as unnatural as offensive line play. Every other position on the field, you're running forward, which is something you do since you're a kid. As an offensive lineman, half the stuff you do is running backwards, and so it's a very difficult technique to learn, and it takes a lot of repetitions, and those guys coming out of college are really behind the 8 ball because they haven't done it much.
Joe, the streak goes over 10,000 on Sunday. How high can it go?
I don't know. I guess I don't really think about it too much, but talking about the snap streak, Dan Murphy and I had some funny discussions last week, because if you remember last year, ESPN came out and said that I had already had 10,000 snaps. We couldn't figure out why they thought that, but we realized that if there's a holding penalty on a play, even though it's a play, it doesn't count as an actual play. So like last week, I think I had 66 or 67 plays, but it only counts as 62 because we had a 2-point conversion and like a defensive holding and an offensive holding. So really we thought my true snap count was probably more like 10,700 or something like that. But when you subtract the plays that get basically do the down over because of penalty, you get screwed a little bit. But I don't know. We'll see. One play at a time. Maybe 10:01. What's that?
Does that mean you need to be put to sleep sooner?
Yeah, exactly. It put me to bed early.
Joe, having dragged yourself out there with, stayed out there with an LCL and played on torn ligaments and things like that, is that why over the years it's been somewhat difficult for you to understand, like if a guy from Peyton Hillis didn't want to play with the flu and those kind of things? Is it just so hard for you to understand a guy taking time off?
Yeah, well, throughout my career, there's been instances where guys just take themselves out because they don't feel good. And to that I say, I hardly ever feel good, but it's my job to go out there and play. And so unless you actually can't do it, or unless the guy behind you is going to be able to do it better than you can due to your situation, I think you should be out there playing. And so it does get frustrating at times throughout my career, seeing guys occasionally not playing because they didn't feel good. And I'm not the only guy that's ever played with an injury, but as an offensive lineman, I'd say more O-linemen than any other position have to play with injuries because our position doesn't rely on being fast. So having injuries doesn't necessarily hurt our play as much as it would. If you're a receiver and you can't run full speed, well, you can't really play because everyone's going to cover you like a blanket. But as a lineman, you don't really have to move that quickly. You just got to be able to use the technique and have enough strength left to be able to get out there and do it.
Is your family getting into this? Like, is this just another game, or like your parents, your wife, like your relatives, a little more excited for this one?
I don't even know if they know that I'm close to 10,000, to be honest. I'm not sure if a lot of my family knows I'm still in the NFL, after 11 years. They've just kind of given up on me, and I'm just like, I'm still playing, I guess. But no, I don't know. I'm not sure. Should call him, ask him.
Joe, we don't need to tell you all these snaps that come in the regular season. How badly do you want to just get a few postseasons?
Yeah. Well, that would mean everything. I think playing for 11 years, the goal has always been to get to the playoffs, Have a home playoff game in First Energy Stadium. I think that experience and that feeling would be unlike any other in my athletic career, and I think it would be something that I would easily consider the highlight of my NFL career.
You plan on playing until that happens?
Well, I wouldn't guarantee it, but hopefully we can do it this year.
Joe, is this, I've heard this, and it makes some sense to me. Is this football's equivalent to what Cal Ripken Jr. did?
I haven't thought about that. I guess I'll leave that up to the bright columnists and beat writers out there to judge the equivalencies there. But I guess I'm just a guy that tries to show up and do his job every day.
Thank you for saying right.
You didn't understand that was facetious?